Laundry day has always been a test of character. Some people find it meditative. Others treat it like a battle. I, for one, prefer to observe it from the comfort of my balcony, preferably with a chilled drink and no detergent involved. That's why, last Thursday, when I noticed a commotion near the courtyard, I immediately sensed it was going to be one of those days. You know the type. The ones that start with socks and end with scandal. From my balcony on apartment 42, I saw Mrs. Cinda Parsons, affectionately known in the building as the Laundry Queen, waving her arms like a shipwreck survivor. She's the kind of woman who treats her clothesline as sacred ground. Color-coded pegs, perfectly spaced garments, even the wind seemed to obey her. But that morning, the line was gone. Not the clothes, the entire line. Hooks, cord, pegs, and a single empty pole swaying like a crime scene. "Evelyn," she shouted, looking up. "Did you see who took it?" I leaned over my balcony railing, pretending to squint thoughtfully. "You mean your clothesline?" "Yes, my brand new retractable one." "Vanished, overnight." "Perhaps it decided to retire," I said. "It's been doing heavy labor." She was not amused. Within minutes, the entire courtyard was alive with speculation. Caroline appeared at her window with curlers and curiosity. Walter the caretaker came marching with his clipboard, again. And even young Jake poked his head out from the basement stairs, holding a coffee mug like he'd just witnessed a tragedy. Now, to be fair, theft isn't common around here, mostly because everyone's too nosy to get away with anything. But a stolen clothesline? That was new. "Maybe the wind took it," Caroline suggested. "The wind?" Mrs. Parsons barked. "Unless it came with scissors and upper body strength, I doubt it." Walter inspected the empty pole like a detective examining evidence. "Clean cut," he muttered. "Probably wire cutters." I watched, sipping my iced tea. "So we're ruling out spontaneous disappearance?" Caroline giggled, Mrs. Parsons glared, and I made a mental note. Whenever the residents start forming a committee, something ridiculous is about to unfold. That evening, the mystery deepened. Someone, and to this day, no one has confessed, created a poll in the building group chat. Who stole the clothesline? A. Teenagers. B. Walter C. Ghost of apartment 12. I didn't vote. Not because I didn't have a theory, but because I was saving it for later. The next morning, I was watering my geraniums when I spotted something fluttering. At first, I thought it was a bird. Then I realized birds don't come in neon blue cotton blends. Underwear. 6 pairs, soaring gracefully from the direction of the upper courtyard, looping like surrender flags. They landed across balconies, tangled in antennas, one even decorating poor Mr. Briggs's satellite dish like a festive ribbon. I admit it, I laughed. Not out loud, but in that quiet, dignified way that feels more satisfying. The courtyard erupted. Mrs. Parsons screamed that the culprit had struck again. Caroline claimed it was a message, maybe symbolic, like freedom, while Walter muttered something about building regulations on aerial fabric hazards. By noon, there was a full-blown underwear crisis. Someone even started a new chat thread called Operation Briefstorm. I stayed out of it, of course. I prefer to watch chaos rather than participate. But as I poured another cup of tea, I noticed something peculiar. Each piece of airborne clothing seemed to be heading in the same direction. Upward. Toward apartment 53, Veronica Hale's balcony. Now, Veronica has many skills. Discretion is not one of them. But she's also not the type to hang laundry. Silk robes, yes. Hand-washed intimates flapping in the sun? Absolutely not. And yet there it was, a flash of lace among her usual orchids. Interesting. I decided to investigate. Discreetly, of course. The kind of discretion that involves pretending to take out the recycling twice in one afternoon. From the hallway, I could hear music from her apartment. Jazz. Soft, expensive-sounding jazz. I knocked lightly. She opened the door in satin and suspicion. "Evelyn," she said, To what do I owe this unexpected visit? Oh, nothing urgent, I replied. I just wanted to ask if you're experimenting with open-air art installations. Her brow arched. Excuse me? I gestured toward the balcony. The underwear exhibition. Quite avant-garde. She blinked. Then, to my astonishment, laughed. Not her usual rehearsed laugh. A real one. Oh, that. I woke up to it this morning. Apparently gravity and gossip have a sense of humor. So you're not the thief. If I were, she said, I'd steal something worth laundering. I left her apartment with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain. The clothesline caper had only just begun. That night, as the wind picked up again, I saw a new note taped to Mrs. Parsons's door. No signature. Just one line, scrawled in bold handwriting. You hang your secrets out to dry. Don't be shocked when someone takes them. Now, that was interesting, because in this building, people might lose socks, tempers, or common sense. But never anonymity. Until now. By Friday morning, the building smelled like detergent, suspicion, and embarrassment. 3 of my favorite scents, frankly. The courtyard was once again alive. A theatrical stage for the drama of ordinary people pretending to be calm. Mrs. Cinda Parsons stood with her arms crossed, glaring at Walter as if he were the physical embodiment of negligence. Walter, clipboard in hand, muttered something about unauthorized aerial movements. Meanwhile, Caroline had turned the situation into performance art. She'd arranged her surviving laundry in a symmetrical pattern, claiming it represented emotional balance. And me? I was doing what I do best, observing. With a lemon tart cooling by the window, I had front row seats to the most absurd mystery of the week. I couldn't help but admire the irony. Of all the possible crimes one could commit, someone had chosen to steal. A clothesline. And then, for reasons known only to the wind and poor taste, set a dozen pairs of underwear free like homing pigeons. If this isn't poetry, I don't know what is. The building's group chat, of course, was chaos. Theories multiplied faster than laundry detergent bubbles. Could be teenagers from next door. Or maybe squirrels. Smart ones. Evelyn, you must have seen something from your balcony. I ignored that last one. Curiosity is a privilege, not a right. But I did notice something peculiar that morning. Veronica Hale's balcony door was open again, and this time, she wasn't alone. A tall man, one of those corporate-looking types with polished shoes and questionable morals, stood beside her. He was gesturing, pointing toward the courtyard, clearly frustrated. Veronica listened, arms folded, expression neutral. Then she said something, short and final. He turned on his heel and left. Now, Veronica never argues in public. If she's visibly annoyed, you know something's off. I decided to pay her another visit. Strictly for community harmony, of course. When she opened the door, she looked tired. Still radiant, but with that distinct fatigue of someone caught between scandal and boredom. Evelyn, she said, with a sigh that could wilt roses. If you're here about the underwear, I assure you, it's not mine. That's a pity, I replied. They had character, she smirked faintly. You should consider stand-up comedy. From what I've seen, you're always standing and judging. Observation, I corrected, not judgment. Subtle difference. We both smiled, the kind of polite duel women have perfected over centuries. Her apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and trouble. I glanced around. Perfectly arranged flowers, glass vases, everything gleaming except for one small detail. A pile of fabric near the window. Lace, satin, a handful of clothespins. Oh, I said casually. New decor? She followed my gaze and rolled her eyes. Evidence. Apparently my balcony is now the neighborhood's lost and found. She picked up a bright red handkerchief. Someone tossed this up here. Nearly hit my vase. Tragic, I said. Art casualties are the worst. She paused, watching me carefully. You think I did it, don't you? I think you're far too elegant to climb down a courtyard with a pair of scissors at midnight." She tilted her head. "That's not a denial. Neither is yours." There was a brief silence, filled only by the hum of her air conditioner and the distant laughter of Caroline downstairs. Finally, Veronica said, "You want to know the truth, Evelyn? I think this building needed a distraction. People here thrive on something to whisper about. Maybe whoever did it just wanted attention." I smiled. "That, my dear, is the most honest confession I've heard all week." As I was leaving, I noticed a note half slipped under her doorframe. The handwriting looked familiar, same as the one left for Mrs. Parsons. Elegant, deliberate. Without touching it, I read what I could see. "Look up, not down." I returned to my apartment and sat by the window thinking. Look up, not down. I did. And there, 3 balconies above Veronica's, something caught my eye. A thin silver line stretched tight, fluttering faintly in the light. The missing clothesline, attached between 2 balconies, one of them belonging to Jake Miller, our resident basement dweller with a talent for bad decisions. Now that was interesting. I went down to see him. He opened the door still wearing headphones and a guilty expression. "Oh, Mrs. Moore," he said, scratching his head. "You, heard about the laundry thing?" "Heard is one word for it," I said. "You've been promoted to suspect. Congratulations." His face turned red. "I didn't steal it. I was just borrowing it." "Borrowing implies consent," I said, "and elevation." He sighed. "Fine, I found it on the ground. I thought it belonged to Walter's maintenance stuff. I tied it between my balcony and the empty one above mine to dry my t-shirts. But the wind carried them into the building's collective trauma?" He nodded miserably. "Pretty much." I wanted to laugh, but his sincerity was too tragic to mock. "Jake," I said kindly, "next time you decide to re-engineer laundry infrastructure, perhaps alert the authorities. Or at least Mrs. Parsons." "I didn't mean to start a war," he mumbled. "Oh, don't worry," I said. "Wars around here don't need intent, just good timing and bad neighbors." When I told Mrs. Parsons later that day, she didn't take it well. In fact, she announced she'd be filing a formal complaint, to whom she didn't specify. Walter tried to mediate but ended up nearly tangled in the evidence himself. By evening, the courtyard looked like a postmodern art installation. Laundry ropes hanging at odd angles, clips everywhere, and half the residents pointing fingers at each other. I stayed out of it, again. But as the sun set, I noticed something curious. On Veronica's balcony railing, another note. "Don't pull the wrong thread." Now, that's not something you write about laundry. That's something you write before things get interesting. There are days when life feels like a carefully folded sheet. Smooth, orderly, predictable. And then there are days like this one, when everything comes unpinned and starts flapping wildly in the breeze, no matter how tightly you try to hold it down. By Saturday morning, our building had turned into what I can only describe as a collective psychological laundromat. Everyone was washing their conscience, airing their theories, and hanging their dignity out to dry. The courtyard looked like the aftermath of an art exhibition no one asked for. Clotheslines crisscrossed like spiderwebs, socks hung from doorknobs. Caroline had installed a community drying rack near the stairwell, an optimistic attempt at diplomacy that ended when Walter tripped over it and nearly declared a state of emergency. Mrs. Cinda Parsons, of course, was at the center of it all. She'd printed flyers, actual flyers, with the words, "Thief Among Us," in bold Comic Sans, which, frankly, was the real crime. By mid-morning, the whole building had gathered near the courtyard for what Caroline called a resolution circle, and what I called a sitcom waiting to happen. "I think," she began, standing in the middle like a pastel diplomat, "that we've all learned something valuable from this." "Ordeal, yeah," Walter grumbled. Don't trust gravity. Laughter rippled, nervous, polite, slightly hysterical. Caroline continued, undeterred. Instead of blaming each other, we should focus on rebuilding our sense of community. We can even hold a clothes swap to— No one's swapping my underthings, Mrs. Parsons interrupted, clutching a basket like a shield. I sat back in my chair on the balcony, sipping my tea, watching the chaos unfold. The morning light hit the courtyard just right. Soft, flattering, the kind of light that makes even absurdity look poetic. Then mid-speech, Caroline's voice faltered. Her eyes fixed on something behind the crowd. We all turned. There, fluttering gently in the breeze, was another pair of underwear, pale pink, delicately embroidered, caught on the antenna above apartment 41. It was like the sky itself had a sense of humor. Walter let out a sigh so dramatic it could have been scored with violins. Not again, Mrs. Parsons gasped. They're multiplying. I might have laughed out loud if not for what happened next, because as Walter reached up to untangle the latest casualty, something slipped from the fabric. A small folded note, taped to the elastic. He caught it mid-air and read aloud. Some things can't be contained. Not wind, not whispers. You could have heard a pin, or a clothespin drop. Everyone turned to look at each other, like the guilt might suddenly appear as subtitles. That's another one of those notes, Caroline said, her voice half thrill, half fear. Mrs. Parsons puffed up like a peacock. This is harassment, philosophical harassment. But my mind was elsewhere. I knew that handwriting, the elegant loops, the neat spacing, the faint trace of blue ink that shimmered just a bit when it caught the light. I'd seen it before, twice actually. Once on the note that read, "You hang your secrets out to dry," and again on an envelope that arrived last spring, from Veronica Hale. She'd written me a thank you card after I lent her a vintage vase for one of her small dinner gatherings. It wasn't small, of course. It involved 12 guests, a harpist, and a table centerpiece taller than Walter. The handwriting matched perfectly. But Veronica? Why on earth would she be writing anonymous poetic threats about laundry? I decided it was time for another visit. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. "Ah, I was expecting you," she said, in the tone of someone who always is. "Then you already know why I'm here." "I do," she replied. "You think I've been leaving notes." "And I think I'm right," I said, smiling sweetly. She laughed softly. "Evelyn, if I were leaving notes, they'd have better paper. Touché." Still, her calmness didn't sit right. There was something too rehearsed about it. "May I?" I gestured toward her desk. She hesitated, then nodded. I noticed a small fountain pen sitting there. Silver, expensive, with the faintest trace of blue ink near the nib. I picked it up, turning it between my fingers. "Lovely pen, a gift," she said. "From Caroline, actually." That stopped me cold. Caroline? The woman who held resolution circles and owned more inspirational magnets than common sense. Veronica continued, almost amused by my confusion. She gave it to me after the Valentine's charity gala. Said I should write more often. I suppose I took her advice. I set the pen down carefully. "You've been writing the notes?" She shook her head. Not me. But she borrowed the pen again last week. Now that made sense. Caroline, the peacekeeper, the mediator, the one who just wanted everyone to get along. What better way to keep people together than to give them something to gossip about? It was almost brilliant. When I found her later, she was in the hallway, sorting fabric for her clothes swap initiative. She looked up, smiling that sunny, innocent smile of hers. "Evelyn, isn't it wonderful?" People are talking again, laughing together. "It's brought us closer." Closer to insanity, perhaps. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "Oh, just admiring your community spirit," I said, And your excellent penmanship." Her eyes widened just slightly, a flicker of recognition. Then she smiled again. "I just wanted to remind people that sometimes things need a little shake-up. And you certainly provided that," I replied. "Besides," she said, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "no one really got hurt. Mrs. Parsons will survive, and admit it. It was fun watching everyone lose their minds over underwear." I had to laugh. Because she was right. Still, I couldn't resist one last jab. "Just remember, dear, when you hang your secrets out to dry, make sure the wind's on your side," she grinned. "I'll keep that in mind." That evening, the courtyard was quiet again. No more flying garments, no more angry group chats, no more threats of legal action. Just a calm breeze and the faint scent of fabric softener lingering in the air. Mrs. Parsons got a new clothesline, a steel one, reinforced against theft, sabotage, and supernatural interference. Walter finally got to remove all the rogue pegs from the gutters. And Caroline? She was already planning her next community project, something about emotional feng shui. I didn't ask. As for me, I went back to my usual post on the balcony, tea in hand, serenity restored. Almost, because just as the sun set behind the row of buildings, I noticed something on my own railing, a single clothespin, painted gold with a tiny note clipped to it. Truth, like laundry, always finds its way back. No signature. But the handwriting, this time it wasn't Caroline's. I smiled. Maybe Veronica had decided to add her own sequel, or maybe the wind had simply learned to write. Either way, I decided not to overthink it. Some stories don't need conclusions, just good lighting and the right soundtrack. So, if you're still here, listening from wherever you are, tell me. What do you think? Was it all a harmless prank? A secret message? Or the universe reminding us not to take our linens, or our lives, too seriously? Leave your theory in the comments. I'll be watching, of course, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more tales from this beautifully dysfunctional neighborhood, and maybe, just maybe, check your own clothesline before bed. Because around here, even the wind loves a little drama. Good night, dear neighbors, and may all your laundry stay exactly where you left it.